I once believed that catching my wife cheating would be the most painful betrayal a man could endure. But then I found out she'd been siphoning money from our kids' college fund for 8 months, funding her getaway with her lover. When she vanished and her sister handed me a final letter, I discovered a truth far darker than infidelity. Someone else had been pulling the strings all along. My name is Michael Clark. I'm 46 years old. And up until 6 months ago, I thought I had the American dream all figured out. I ran a solid electrical contracting company that kept food on the table and a roof over our heads. I had a beautiful wife named Jolene who I believed loved the life we'd built together, and 4 kids who were my whole world. Levi, 17, gearing up for college next year. Asher, 15, captain of his high school soccer team. Samuel, 12, still my little shadow who begged to tag along on every electrical job. And Liam, 10 years old, the light of our lives, born from tragedy. We took Liam in 3 years ago after his parents, Jake and Sarah, were killed in a plane crash outside Denver. Jake had been my best friend since high school, and Sarah was like a sister to Jolene. When we learned they'd named us as Liam's guardians, there was never a second thought. That boy needed love, and we had plenty to give. Our home in suburban Phoenix thrived on controlled chaos. Homework scattered across the kitchen table, soccer cleats by the front door, and a constant mix of teenage noise and little boy energy. Jolene managed it all with flawless grace, like a conductor leading a symphony. She worked as a marketing coordinator at Pinnacle Solutions downtown, overseeing corporate campaigns. I ran Clark Electric with 6 guys, mostly residential jobs, but enough commercial work to stay busy all year. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. A 4-bedroom home, a backyard pool the kids adored, and enough room for everyone to have their space. Jolene drove a silver Honda Pilot for all the school drop-offs and practices, while I stuck with my work truck and a weekend SUV for family trips to Flagstaff or Tucson. Money was tight with 4 kids, especially with Levi's tuition coming up. Arizona State had accepted him into their engineering program, a dream come true, but one that stretched our finances to the limit. Jolene assured me she had it handled. She managed every dollar, the bills, the household budget, even the business books. "You just keep Phoenix lit up, honey," she'd tell me with that smile I fell in love with 18 years ago. "I'll take care of the numbers." And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife, the mother of my children, the woman who'd opened her heart to Liam when he needed us most. She organized our world with meticulous precision, from soccer schedules to invoices, grocery lists to vacations. But trust can be dangerous when it's misplaced. And the woman I thought I knew better than anyone was about to show me how little I really understood about the person sleeping beside me. It all began to unravel on a Tuesday evening in March, the day everything changed. I'd finished a job in Scottsdale ahead of schedule when the homeowner decided they didn't need the extra outlets after all. My crew wrapped up around 3 instead of our usual 5:30. "Boss, want us to hit the Henderson job tomorrow?" Tony, my lead electrician, asked as we packed up. "Yeah," I said, wiping sweat from my brow. "Let's get an early start. I'm heading home. Jolene's been wanting me to spend more time with the kids anyway." The drive home took about 20 minutes. I was thinking about firing up the grill, maybe getting all 4 boys outside for some hands-on time. Samuel had been bugging me to show him the basics of wiring. Tonight seemed perfect. When I pulled into the driveway around 4:15, Jolene's Honda wasn't there. Odd. She usually got home from Pinnacle by 4. Inside, the house was quiet. No kids, no sound. Then I heard it. Low voices from the kitchen, papers rustling. My first thought was that one of the boys had come home early. But then I heard Jolene laugh, that laugh. The one she used when she was flirting or trying to charm someone. I set my tool bag down quietly and crept closer. "Are you sure Michael won't be home early?" a man's voice asked. One I didn't recognize. "He never gets home before 5:30, Doug," Jolene replied. Doug? Who the hell was Doug? My blood ran cold. I leaned against the wall and peeked into the kitchen. Jolene sat at our table with a tall man I'd never seen before. Early 40s, sharp suit, every inch the corporate type. Papers were spread across the table, Jolene's laptop open in front of her. "The transfer has to go through before the month ends," Doug said, reaching out to brush her hand. "Your husband's business account has enough to cover it without raising suspicion." "I know," Jolene murmured, her tone softer than I'd heard in months. "Michael completely trusts me with the finances." He doesn't even check the statements anymore. My fists tightened. They were talking about my business, my money, the money I'd earned crawling through attics and grinding through 12-hour days to keep our family afloat. And once the transfer's complete, Doug continued, we'll have enough for the down payment on that condo in Sedona. Just you, me, and a fresh start. Those words hit me like an electric shock. Jolene squeezed his hand and leaned closer. I've been thinking about Levi, she said. He's almost ready for college. Maybe we should wait until after graduation. Jolene, we've been planning this for 8 months, Doug replied sharply. You can't keep living 2 lives. The money's already moving through the shell companies. We need to finish this before your husband figures it out. Shell companies. My wife was stealing from me, with this man named Doug, and they'd been planning it for 8 months. My heart pounded so hard I thought they'd hear it. I backed away, slipped out the back door, and sat in my truck for 20 minutes, hands shaking as I tried to process what I'd just heard. 8 months. They'd been betraying me for 8 months while I worked myself to the bone. When Doug's car finally pulled out of the driveway, I waited another 10 minutes before going back inside. Jolene was at the kitchen sink, humming softly as she gathered the papers they'd been reviewing. Hey, honey, she said sweetly when I walked in. You're home early. Job wrapped up ahead of schedule. I answered, watching her carefully. She looked calm, like she hadn't just plotted to drain my business account and run off with another man. That night, once the boys were asleep, I started digging through our financial records. What I found made my blood boil. Transfers to companies I'd never heard of: Desert Sun Consulting, Phoenix Business Solutions, Southwest Marketing Group. Every one of them a shell company. The total was staggering: $37,000 drained from Clark Electric over the past year. Money meant for Levi's tuition, our mortgage, our future. The next morning, I called my brother Jake. I need a favor, I said. Know any good private investigators? Mike, what's going on? I can't get into it yet, but I think Jolene's been stealing from the business. He was quiet for a moment, then said, Danny Rodriguez. Phoenix PD. He's solid. 2 hours later, I was sitting across from Danny in a downtown coffee shop. I showed him the photo I'd taken of Doug's car, the license plate clearly visible. This is Douglas Barrett, Danny said after running the plate. He works for Pinnacle Solutions, same company as your wife. But here's the kicker, he's not in marketing. He's in accounting. My jaw tightened. So, he has access to financial data. Exactly, Danny said. And those shell companies you mentioned? None of them are real. But every single one ties back to businesses Barrett has been connected with. How long's this been happening? I asked. From what I see, at least a year. Maybe longer. He leaned forward. Mike, this isn't just an affair. It's organized fraud. Your wife and this Barrett guy are running a full-scale operation. I hired him on the spot. Over the next 2 weeks, Danny uncovered everything. Doug Barrett had been using his position at Pinnacle Solutions to create fake vendor accounts and funnel money into personal investments. Jolene was the insider, using her access to my business books to make the transactions look legitimate. But it didn't stop with me. Doug had targeted other small business owners whose wives also worked at Pinnacle. It was a coordinated scam, and Jolene was his star accomplice. The hardest part was pretending everything was normal. Every morning, I kissed Jolene goodbye knowing she was plotting to leave us. Every evening, I helped the boys with homework while she sat at the kitchen table, likely figuring out how much more she could steal. Liam nearly broke me. He'd been having nightmares again, waking up terrified that something bad would happen to our family. Dad, you and Mom aren't gonna leave us, right? He asked one night as I tucked him in. Never, buddy. I told him, meaning every word. You're stuck with me forever. But I couldn't promise the same about his adoptive mother. Danny's surveillance confirmed my worst fears. Jolene and Doug were meeting regularly at a hotel outside Scottsdale. They always met on the days she claimed she was working late. By then, Jolene and Doug had already made a down payment on a condo in Sedona, with money stolen from my business. They're close to making their move, Danny told me during one of our meetings. Barrett's been liquidating assets, turning everything into cash. And your wife's been transferring larger sums lately. I think they're getting ready to disappear. That was the moment I decided to strike first. I called my lawyer, Patricia Wells, the same one who'd helped me set up Clark Electric years ago. After hearing what I'd uncovered, her voice turned cold and sharp. Michael, What you're describing is embezzlement and conspiracy to commit fraud, she said. With the evidence you've collected, we can pursue both criminal and civil charges. What about my kids? I asked. How do I protect them through all this? We'll make sure they're safe, she assured me. But you need to act quickly, before they move any more money. That evening, I sat Levi and Asher down at the kitchen table. They were old enough to understand something serious was happening. Boys, I need to tell you something about your mother, I began, forcing my voice to stay steady. She's made some terrible decisions, ones that are going to affect all of us. Levi's face went pale. What kind of decisions? She's been stealing money from our business, and she's planning to leave us with another man. Asher slammed his fist on the table. That's not true. I wish it wasn't, I said quietly. But I have proof. That conversation was the hardest I've ever had as a father. 2 days after I had the papers served, Jolene came home furious. I was in the garage working on equipment when she burst in, face red with anger. How dare you freeze our accounts, she shouted. I couldn't even buy groceries today. I set down my multimeter and looked her dead in the eye. Our accounts? You mean the ones you've been stealing from for 8 months? Her face drained of color. I don't know what you're talking about. Desert Sun Consulting, Phoenix Business Solutions, Southwest Marketing Group. She flinched at every name. Should I keep going? I asked. Or do you want to tell me about Doug Barrett yourself? Michael, let me explain. Explain what? How you plan to run off to Sedona with $37,000 of my money. How you met him at hotels while I was working overtime to pay for Levi's college. She took a step toward me, but I raised a hand. Don't. The kids need their mother, she said, her voice cracking. You can't keep me from them. The kids need a mother who doesn't steal their future, I said coldly. You made your choice when you chose Doug Barrett over your family. It's not what you think, she insisted. Doug said we could all start over, together. I let out a bitter laugh. Jolene, I heard you in the kitchen. You weren't taking the kids. You were going to vanish without them. Her silence said everything. Levi's college fund is gone, I continued. The money for Samuel's braces, Asher's soccer camp, Liam's therapy, you took it all. For what? A condo with your boyfriend? Doug loves me, she screamed. Something you haven't done in years. I loved you enough to work 60-hour weeks. I loved you enough to trust you with our finances, with our future. I loved you enough to take in Liam when he needed a family. My voice was calm, steady. But that wasn't enough for you, was it? She started to cry, but I felt nothing. Those tears might have broken me 6 months ago, not anymore. The police will be here tomorrow, I said quietly. Danny Rodriguez has been building a case for 2 weeks. Bank records, surveillance, photos, recordings, everything. You can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, Jolene. You did this to yourself. I walked past her toward the house. Pack your things tonight. You're not welcome here anymore. What about the kids? She asked weakly. What about them? You were ready to abandon them anyway. That night, she packed 2 suitcases and left. She didn't even say goodbye. The next morning, Detective Williams showed up to take my statement. The boys were at school, which made things easier. Mr. Clark, we've arrested Douglas Barrett and issued a warrant for your wife, he said. The evidence you and your investigator provided is solid. This case should be straightforward. What about the stolen money? I asked. We've frozen their assets. The condo payment will be returned to your account. The rest will depend on what the court decides. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table, staring into a cup of coffee, trying to find the words to tell my kids their mother was going to prison. Levi came home first, dropping his backpack by the door. Dad, is it true what people are saying? That mom got arrested? I nodded. She and Doug Barrett were caught stealing money, not just from us, but from other families, too. How much? About $37,000 from us. Probably a lot more from others. Levi sat down heavily. Does that mean I can't go to college? Son, you're going to college if I have to work 3 jobs to make it happen, I told him. Your mother's mistakes don't get to decide your future. When the other boys got home, we had a family meeting. Samuel cried. Asher slammed his fist into the wall, leaving a hole in the drywall. Liam just stared at the table, probably reliving the pain of losing his parents before. Are we going to be okay? Samuel asked through tears. We're going to be more than okay, I told them. From now on, we'll be honest with each other. No more secrets. No more lies. Over the next few weeks, word spread through the neighborhood about Jolene's arrest. Some whispered behind my back, questioning what kind of husband lets his wife steal. Others showed support, bringing casseroles and inviting the boys over for dinner. Clark Electric even benefited from the publicity. Other small business owners, concerned about their own finances, hired me to review their electrical systems and security measures. People began to see me as someone who stood up to fraud, right in his own home. The hardest part was watching Liam withdraw. He had experienced abandonment before, and seeing another mother figure leave was heartbreaking. "Dad," he said one night as I tucked him in, "was it my fault she left? Because I'm not really her son?" "Liam, listen to me," I said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "None of this is your fault. You're my son, period. Jolene's choices are about her, not you." "What if you think I'm too much trouble too?" he asked. I pulled him into a hug. "That's never going to happen. You're stuck with me forever, buddy." 3 months later, Jolene pled guilty to embezzlement and fraud. She received 2 years in prison and full restitution. Doug Barrett got 5 years. We never heard from her again. 6 months after her conviction, life had settled into a new rhythm. The boys adapted well, Clark Electric was thriving, and I had started dating Rebecca, a school counselor who understood blended families. Then Liam came home with news that shook me. "Dad, there's a man asking questions about Mom at school," he said, nervously dropping his backpack. "What kind of questions?" I asked. "He asked Mrs. Peterson if Mom ever talked about having other children. Like a kid she gave up or something." My blood ran cold. I called the school immediately. They had no record of any investigation. That evening, a knock came at the door. On my porch stood a man in his 30s, with Jolene's dark eyes and sharp nose. "Are you Michael Clark?" he asked. "Depends who's asking," I replied. "My name is David Foster," he said. "Jolene Clark is my sister." I had never heard Jolene mention a brother. "What do you want to talk about?" I asked. "My nephew. The one she wrote about in Letters from Prison." "Which nephew?" "I have 4 sons." David's expression darkened. "The one she had before she married you. The one she gave up for adoption at 3. The world tilted beneath me. "That's impossible." Liam Richardson, born April 15, 2014. Mother, Jolene Foster. Father, Jake Richardson. David pulled out a manila folder. Jolene had given him up because she couldn't handle being a single mother. The adoptive parents were Jake and Sarah Richardson. I gripped the porch railing. Jake had never told me he adopted Liam. He always said Liam was his biological son. "You're lying," I said, though my voice lacked conviction. Jake Richardson had been sterile from cancer treatment as a teen. He and Sarah couldn't have biological children. They adopted Liam through a private agency, and Jolene signed away all parental rights. David handed me the folder. When Jolene learned of the plane crash, she knew Liam would come to us. She thought it was perfect. She'd get her son back without revealing the truth. "Why didn't she ever tell me?" I asked. "Because then you'd know she had abandoned a child before," David said. "She knew if you found out, you'd realize she was capable of abandoning children." I invited David inside. We spent 3 hours reviewing documents, birth certificate, adoption papers, medical records. Liam was Jolene's biological son, given up because she wasn't ready to be a mother. "Does Liam know?" I asked. "No. Jake and Sarah never told him. They wanted him to feel secure. And now he's lost his adoptive parents and doesn't even know his biological mother is in prison for stealing from the family that raised him," David said grimly. "She wants to see him," he added. "She's been writing letters asking me to bring him to visit." "Over my dead body," I said firmly. "That woman has done enough damage." She was still his biological mother, but she was a convicted felon who had abandoned him once and had planned to do it again. Biology doesn't make her a mother. It only makes her a DNA donor. David studied me quietly. "You really love that boy." "He's my son," I said. "He's been my son since the day he walked through that door." "What are you going to tell him?" I glanced toward the stairs where the boys were doing homework. "I'll tell him the truth, in an age-appropriate way when he's ready. But I'll make sure he knows the most important thing, that he's loved and wanted here." David left his contact information and promised not to approach Liam directly, but I knew this wasn't over. Jolene still had one card to play, her biological connection, which she might try to use to manipulate our family again. I spent 3 sleepless nights deciding how to tell Liam about his biological mother. Finally, I called Rebecca for guidance. "Michael, this will shake his world," she warned. He's already struggling with abandonment after losing Jake and Sarah. Learning that Jolene gave him up as a toddler could be devastating, but he deserves the truth. Yes, but carefully. And with professional support, I agreed. I arranged for Liam to meet with Dr. Martinez, the child psychologist helping him process his grief. Together, we planned a way to reveal the truth without destroying his sense of security. The conversation took place on a Saturday morning in my home office, with Dr. Martinez present. Liam, I need to tell you something important about your birth parents, and about Jolene. I began. His face tightened with fear. Am I in trouble? He asked. No, buddy, you're not in trouble, but there's something you need to know. I took a deep breath. Do you remember how Jake and Sarah became your parents? They adopted you because your birth parents couldn't care for you, right? He nodded. That's right. Well, your birth mother is someone you already know. It was Jolene. Liam stared at me, confused. Jolene was my real mom. Yes, she gave birth to you. But being a real mom means more than that. It means caring for you, loving you, and being there when you need help. Jake and Sarah were your real parents because they chose to love and raise you. So Jolene knew who I was when she lived with us? Yes, she knew, and she still left. Liam was silent for a long time, processing the truth with Dr. Martinez guiding him gently. Finally, he looked at me. Dad, does this mean I have to live with her when she gets out? Never, I said firmly. You are my son legally and permanently. That will never change. But what if she wants me back? Liam, she had 18 months in prison to write letters to ask about you. She never did. The only reason this came up is because her brother contacted me, not because she's fighting for you. Dr. Martinez leaned in. Liam, how do you feel about all this? Confused, he admitted, and kind of mad. Why didn't she want me when I was little? Why didn't she want me when I came to live here? Sometimes adults make bad choices that have nothing to do with the children. Jolene's decisions reflect her problems, not your worth, I explained. Over the next weeks, we talked more about family, biology, and what it means to belong. Liam wrestled with feelings of rejection, but began to understand that his value doesn't depend on Jolene. The breakthrough came when he asked, Dad, if you found out tomorrow that Levi, Asher, or Samuel weren't your biological sons, would you love them less? Not for a second, I replied. Then it doesn't matter that Jolene's my birth mom, does it? You chose me anyway. That's exactly right, buddy. 3 months later, Jolene was released from prison. She never contacted us, never asked to see Liam, never tried to be part of his life. Her brother David called once to say she had moved to California with a new boyfriend. Liam accepted the news with maturity. Good, he said simply. I already have a family. 2 years passed. Life found its rhythm. Levi thrived at Arizona State. Asher earned a soccer scholarship to community college. Samuel became my right-hand man on electrical jobs. And Liam had grown into a confident 12-year-old who called me dad without hesitation. Rebecca and I married in a small ceremony at our church, with all 4 boys as groomsmen. For the first time in years, our family felt complete and secure. Then, on a Tuesday morning, an unknown woman called my office. Mr. Clark, my name is Jennifer Foster. I'm Jolene's sister. Jolene never mentioned a sister, I said cautiously. We were estranged for years because of her problems with money and men. But Mr. Clark, she continued, I'm calling because Jolene died 3 days ago. The words hit me harder than I expected. I was stunned. Jolene was gone, finally. All the pain, betrayal, and deception that had shadowed our lives for over a year had reached its end. I sat down with the boys that evening, telling them the news gently. Levi, Asher, Samuel, and Liam all processed it differently, but I could see relief in their eyes. The woman who had caused so much damage was no longer part of our lives. Life gradually returned to a peaceful rhythm. Clark Electric continued to thrive. Levi focused on his engineering program at Arizona State. Asher excelled on the soccer field and in school. Samuel became my dependable helper at work, and Liam grew into a confident, happy child who felt secure in our family. Rebecca and I embraced the stability we had fought to build. We celebrated birthdays, school achievements, and ordinary days together. For the first time in years, our home felt truly safe, full of love and laughter. Although Jolene's absence left scars, it also brought clarity. I realized that being a parent wasn't about biology, but about love, dedication, and presence. And in our home, those values were abundant. Every day, I reminded myself and the boys that family is built through care, trust, and support, not DNA alone. We had survived betrayal, heartbreak, and uncertainty, and we had come out stronger on the other side. As I tucked Liam into bed that night, he smiled and whispered, "I already have a family." And I knew he meant it, because we had truly become one, whole and unbroken.